which is waiting for, yeah. Hi, Kavitha.
Hi.
All right, thank you. Thank you for joining in.
I was just happy to be here.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thanks all the participants. Thank you all for joining in today to listen to and join in our conversation today about discovering the child of 6 to 12. We have with us a speaker, Ms Kavitha Gunasekharan. She's the director at the Indian Montessori Training Courses, Chennai, and founder of Abacus Montessori Learning Centre. We're very fortunate to have her today with us. The team of Aroha, which is Sudha, Sindhu, and I are very happy to have you, Kavitha, with us today. Thank you so much for talking to us and at such a short notice, taking this up. And just to give you a brief, to give all the participants a brief about Kavitha, she's been in the Montessori field for over 16 years now, and she's worked with prestigious schools like the Abacus Montessori School, Cascade Learning Centre, and she's been training adults at the Indian Montessori Training Centre, having been trained herself at the Indian Montessori Training Centre and at Navadisha, the AMI training for elementary Montessori. And in fact, the team of Aroha has been trained under her. And personally, I learn a lot from her on a day-to-day basis. So thank you, Kavitha. Thanks so much. So in her endeavor to reach out to more children, she's become a full-time trainer now and handles the Montessori Elementary Course at IMTC. And she also runs the learning center called Abacus Learning Centre, Abacus Montessori Learning Centre, to reach out to more children. So we're very happy to have you here to listen to you as you unravel the mysteries of the 6 to 12-year-old children. So shall we start off with the first question that many of us have been wondering, and we've had parents ask us also about how this 3 to 6 child suddenly seems to change. The 6 to 12 is a different ballgame altogether. So we wanted to check with you, we wanted to ask you, how would you define the salient features of a 3 to 6? And if you can take us through what happens to this child as the child enters the 6 to 12 phase.
So I would like to thank all of you to have me here in this space. I'm very new to this. Always happy to talk about the children. So there's nothing to thank me about for this. I'm always happy to be there, talking about the child. So here, so the question is about how we can understand the transition of this child from, what we call the primary age, where this is bound by the 3 to 6 years of age, and then the child who is we need to understand who this child is, who's moved from this plane to the next plane. So Montessori actually identifies children's development in planes of 6 years, and the first 6 years is called the primary age group, and then the next 6 years is called the elementary age group. So for those who are not aware of these terms, I would like to introduce these terms. So the primary and the elementary age group. So we are going to talk about how this child transitions from the primary into the elementary age group. So first of all, let's try to understand who this child is, who is in the primary plane of development. So in the primary plane of development, we understand the children in terms of their physical characteristics and the way they behave. We need to keep aside all our prejudices about them and truly observe them to understand them, isn't it, Ritu?
Yeah.
And we have to identify them as constructors of themselves. We hardly do that. Most of us as parents or as caretakers, we think that the child takes in all that we provide the child with, and we are the ones who are solely responsible for their development. We take all the credits on us, whereas we truly have to give all the credits to the child as a constructor of himself or herself. This is the first thing we'll have to do. In that, how the child creates himself or herself is a big question. It is in the way we as adults provide or facilitate the environment for this development and nurture the characteristics in the child. So in true sense, each one of us have constructed ourselves. We are not the same as our parents or our siblings. Yeah. So that is the proof of the pudding there that we need to understand. So when the child is in the first plane, they are very observant and they are absorbing the environment in its entirety. Like a sponge which absorbs all the water that is there without any discretion as to, oh, this is not something that I need to take in, or this is something that I need to take in. In that sense, we have to be very careful in what we project before the children and what we provide, isn't it? Right. These first 6 years are very crucial in defining their personality. In fact, all our personalities are developed in the first 6 years of.
So what we are today is there from there.
Yeah, defining there. Yes. So any person identifies themselves by their personality, isn't it? And all that is created in the first 6 years of age. That means it's very crucial for in our whole life. They are also, in the first plane, the children are also guided by their sensitive periods. Now, to define this, we may imagine the spotlights in a dark room or a torchlight. When you focus that on something, that is brought to light, and we completely focus on that particular thing. That's how the sensitive periods in a child's life work in the first plane. So they're particularly sensitive about a particular thing at that period of time. And their whole self is focusing on absorbing that particular aspect of things around them. For instance, it could be smell or taste or touch or sounds, colors, and so on. So at a particular time, they would be very sensitive about smells. They would go on smelling things, and they would say, "Oh, this smells like that and that." And we at times we also can relate to these things, because now we don't particularly go sniffing around, but then we know the smell of each and everything around us. Right. How a paper smells, or how damp cloth smells, or we even know the taste of everything, which means that we have already tasted them, and that has happened during this first 6 years of age. So that's how the child imbibes all these qualities into them in the first plane. The child is making it his or her personality. They know it by their whole self. So that's a very important aspect in the first plane of development. They also repeat doing things, and that's how they perfect their skills on something. They repeat incessantly until they are satisfied from within. Some child may repeat 10 times or twice, or sometimes 50 or 100 times also. We don't know. We don't have a particular count to say, or this many times the child will practice or repeat till they are perfected. Not like that. It depends on each child, but there is this characteristic of repeating things. So these are all, and also the child is a solo player here in the first plane. They are all the time, they work individually. The whole world is centered around them. If they can relate to things by keeping themselves as the center. This is how, like, I can relate to my mother from what she is to me. But I can
Right.
relate my mother and father to be related. That is how it is.
Right.
so
So I'm the universe.
yes, I'm the center of the universe. Everything is related to me, not, and they cannot be related to each other. I can remember how my daughter used to say that I'm my husband's mother as well. So she thought that way, I'm her mother as well as her father's mother as well. So that's how children can relate to themselves. Now, with this understanding of the child in the first plane, who is out there to understand the world through with all his senses, his or her senses. We are now moving on to this child who is in the second plane, and this child is totally different.
Right.
It's like the metamorphosis of the butterfly, where you see the caterpillar and then you see that this caterpillar is turned into a chrysalis inside a cocoon, and they don't look alike in any ways at all. No, we cannot relate to them as one being related to the other. Similarly, the child in the second plane is very different from the first plane, who is very obedient, very orderly, does their work by themselves, and so much out there to work, is now showing a different characteristic. They're not, the sense of order is totally gone.
Right.
You see things thrown all around the place, and they're not bothered about it. They're not keeping things in their places. They do not talk to you the same way they did before, and now you may find them asking a lot more questions. Earlier, the child who said, at the moment you gave a name to something, the child would have accepted and gone away. But then the same child now would say, is it? But why? How? Where did it come from? Oh, when was it bought? Or things like that. And the questions never end. And you may, and at the outset, the child might seem to be rude or disobedient, because you're used to seeing a child who is very obedient and very, that kind of a child. Now, this child goes ahead in knowing beyond the world, in knowing beyond their world, beyond the boundaries of their world. They want to know the universe. And not only what is there, but also how it came about, what is the purpose behind each and everything, when did it all happen? So there are many big questions that are there in understanding this whole universe. This is how now the child is orienting themselves towards towards being a part of the society. Now the child is wanting to become a member of the society, a contributing member of the society, and not just a part of the society. So whenever you want to know about something, what would you do, Ritu?
Try and look at, ask somebody, or look in the books, or refer to something. Go back to some reference point.
Yeah. Now the child is also doing that in his own way, trying to ask questions, as many questions as possible, to orient themselves towards this environment, which is the universe, which they are part of, by reading, by researching, by going back and forth, trying to find a point of reference, as you said. All this the child is trying to do. And for this, we need to be very understanding and not shun away their questions by saying, just keep quiet.
Right.
But you see that there is there's an array of questions that they would ask all the time for any answer that you're giving. So the onset of the second plane is characterized by a questioning mind that they have. From there, we can also then understand that the questioning mind is then accompanied by logical reasoning. Because when you ask a question, it is not just simply asking questions, but they also want to reason out things, and that's why they question.
So they don't take an answer for granted. They want to know why.
Yeah, why. It's not just by the face value of it. Because my mother's saying so, I accept that. No, now it is not about that at all. It is about logically reasoning out each and every answer you give. So they're going to ask you questions in that sense. You need to understand this and try to sort of support your answers with, so that they understand things logically. It's like when you pack your bag to go on a journey, you would put things in a very logical order, isn't it? That what I need first, I might keep on top. And then the things that I need later, I might pack it at the bottom. But the child wants to know why. No, he's seeing you, he's watching you do all this. And now he wants to know why you're doing that. You need to open up your brain to say, yeah, this is what is happening. I'm processing my thoughts in this manner, and that's why my actions are in this order. You need to say that to the child. You need to explain that to the child. And that is part of logical reasoning, I would say. No?
Yeah, instead of saying, don't ask me too many questions, just go do your work. I mean, that would be a normal reaction of a parent, or, most of the times.
Yeah.
Parents and educators or caregivers. So you're saying we need to be more conscious about trying to understand where that is coming from.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So we also then see that the children are, I said, the child in the first plane is a solo player. They are individually working at their own pace, and they can parallelly work with each other, but they cannot work together in the first plane. Whereas here in the second plane, you see that the children are group oriented. They want to work together. There's a lot of teamwork that happens in the environment, if you see in the Montessori environment, because that's how it is designed. So you'll see that the children are working in groups. The moment you enter the environment, you might have a request that, Auntie, can I work with these children today? And they will have different combinations every day. They are trying it out. Yeah, they're trying it out, seeing what works for them and what not. And then this is towards understanding the society, I would say. It's like a mini society in the environment where you have children trying out what works for them, what not, what are rules that need to be followed in a group. They also naturally come up with a leader for the group. There is a secret code of conduct in the group. So these are all things that to their group event. We can also relate to our own childhood, and we can sort of I can recollect my childhood days when I was also part of a group, and it was the most important thing of all to be part of a group. If you're not, then you're left out, and you feel really very sort of dejected, and so that's very important in the elementary age group, to be part of a group. There is this onset of imagination in the children in the second plane. Now, this power of imagination, I would say, is the greatest force in the second plane. Now, what it does, and what kind of imagination are we talking about? There are many kinds of imagination, like sitting there and imagining to have a cup of tea or coffee, and all that you can imagine. That's a different kind of imagination. That's we can say fantasizing. But then the kind of imagination that we are talking about in the second plane is creative imagination, factual imagination, where the child can move from reality into something that is not in the immediate. In a sense that if you're going to show them a model of a lake or an island, that we do, isn't it? In the environment where we show them models of landforms and whatever. With this, they are going to move to understanding that all the lakes in the world are having these features. So this is how, yeah. So moving on from a micro level to a macro level, where they can apply things to the whole and understand the whole. If I say hot air moves up or raises up by showing a demonstration, they can apply this to the whole and say, oh, so the wind all over the world, all around us, behaves in this manner. Whenever it's hot, it rises up. So this is the kind of imagination we are talking about, where the child can relate to things beyond their senses by realizing or experiencing that which is in reality. This sort of helps them in moving into abstraction. So we call this plane, the second plane, an abstract plane, where they need reality to move into abstract. Yeah. And to move into abstraction, you need imagination. You also need precision. And this precision comes from your mathematical mind. And therefore, these are all the aids in which, by which we can help the child accentuate his development in the second plane. This is also a plane for justice. So, yeah, the children are very particular about, fair, and so they will always seem to be complaining of something or the other. You would find them all the time coming to you and saying, "Auntie, she did that," or "This one did this." As parents, we also come across such instances where the children at this age are all the time complaining about one or the other, and that's because they want to know what is right and what is wrong. It's not about telling on somebody, but it is about your action and your behavior towards that particular issue, with which they are building their own justice. They tend to understand what is black and what is white, and if there are any gray areas as well. So what should we do then? Should we give them the solutions to every problem that they come with? Is that what we should do? Or should we help them solve their own problems by giving them moral judgment? Right. So this is something that we have to constantly as adults understand and help the child with. There are also times when you will see them talking about big things. As I know, they will have big questions in the sense, what is this whole? Who is God? They may ask, or is God there at all, or is he? If we say that God is watching you, or such questions, or what is death? These are all big questions that are there in their minds, and they would all the time ask you such questions. Not to shoo away, but then to give them logical and scientific answers to these would be the right approach. So these are some things, some characteristics with which we can understand that the child has now moved on into the second plane.
Right. Yeah. Very interesting to know about this child. So, so basically, we are looking at a child who has a head full of questions, wants to know everything about everything, and is also ready to take your answers, in the sense that he is ready to imagine, he's ready to put logic to it, reason it out. So you also mentioned something about group work, which is again very interesting for this. I mean, this is a very particular characteristic of the 6 to 12. Yeah. And you also mentioned that a Montessori environment gives that kind of setting or that kind of
Platform,
platform,
space.
yeah, a space for children to kind of live their lives as they are, their natural self. How else does a Montessori environment help to kind of address these needs, address these characteristics?
Yeah. So in particular, a Montessori environment is designed to cater to all the needs of the child in the second plane. Taking all these into consideration, the characteristics that we spoke about just now, taking all that into consideration, the environment is designed in the manner to help them develop their sense of imagination, their questioning mind, their logical reasoning, to help them work in group. There is also a particular sensitivity towards developing language, and also to move from concrete into abstract. So there are a lot of material that are devised in such a way that they can work with their hands to understand the concept, and then very soon move into abstract because of the pattern that the material comes up with.
Offers.
So yeah. So so these are some of the ways in which the environment helps the children, in the second plane. The role of the adult in the environment is also something that is very important, because we say that the children are guided into discovering things for themselves. They're not given things on a platter. They're not given the formula for something and say, now this is the formula, start substituting the values and figuring out the answers. That's not the way to go about. But then devising the formula itself, is something that the children do. In a sense that they retrace the path of the human beings of the past.
Right.
So that's what the environment also does. It helps them retrace the path in providing all these aids, at the right time. So the role of the adult and the environment plays a very important role in grooming the development of the child in the second plane. It should provide opportunities for the child to explore the universe. Because as I told you earlier, that the child is now wanting to understand the universe. Giving them the idea of the universe and then giving them details thereby is something that the environment also does. The environment should cater to the needs of the child as a whole being, and not as a being who is seen as developing only the intellect.
Right.
So when I say the whole being, we are taking into consideration the child's physical needs, social needs, emotional needs, intellectual needs, spiritual needs. Yes, all these together makes the whole child. And we need to look at the child's development holistically. So the environment should provide opportunities in all these areas to see the whole child's development in all these areas. Yeah.
So how does that? So basically, we are helping the child own his or her own learning. So I learn for myself, and I discover it myself. So what are the different tools that we have in the Montessori environment for the elementary that can be applied to this? As in, you said working. I mean, we have learning where working in groups is important. So that way we are kind of addressing one particular aspect of the child's development. Anything, if I say imagination. So is there a tool in the environment that helps the child to kind of imagine?
Okay, so the way the curriculum is designed is also one very important aspect of looking at the child's development. We see everything integrated as a whole. and the curriculum, it's also called cosmic education. This is something that is not to do with astronomy or something. It is about looking at each and every subject area as a whole, as an integrated whole. One is not just isolated, each and every subject is not something that is isolated in its by itself, but it is connected to everything else, and that's how our universe exists. So so we see that this is the curriculum that is provided to the children. The foundation of this curriculum stands on the 5 great stories, which then leads the child towards exploring every area. Maybe we can say mathematics, sciences. You can go into chemistry, physics, biology, mineralogy, or any area is. You can see that these 5 great stories hold a thread to all. So it's all encompassing, and that's how the curriculum is different. There are physical material that the child works with, which helps them understand the concepts, and while working with the material, the patterns that emerge out help the child formulate the concepts by themselves. They tend to understand if it is true just then, or if it is true every time, and if it is true every time, then can this be a rule? That's how they form their generalizations and come up with a rule. That's very interesting to see, when we as children studied in school, we sort of were given the formulae, and then we were asked to apply it to a particular question. But here you see that the children arrive at the formula for themselves, like a plus b the whole square is equal to a square plus b square plus 2ab. There's something that the children can devise for themselves. Isn't that very fascinating and interesting?
Absolutely.
Till I entered the course training, I had not for myself known what the meaning of this formula was. And then it was such a blow on my face when I understood that this is the area of a square with these 2 dimensions. I don't know, I felt, why didn't I ever know this? So why didn't somebody tell me that this is what it meant? We were given the formula, but we were not told where it was applied or where it came from. But here the children know from where it comes. And then, therefore, there is no need for memorization. You know it. Because you are the one who arrived at it also. Like,
Absolutely.
things that you find for yourself, that you discovered for yourself in your life. You know it in and out. As your personality, you know it. So this is how children take responsibility of their learning in the environment, by knowing it for themselves. So was that an answer to your question, or did I leave out something?
No, that answers, I think. I think it also, I feel, kind of answers the questions that many parents have. Many parents tend to think that Montessori is only for 3 to 6. But now with something that you have shared, I think we kind of confirms that, beyond that, 6 to 12, which we call the elementary age group in a Montessori environment, provides all this for the child to kind of develop, construct himself further, and all the tools that you've mentioned, like cosmic education and all that. So where the child is learning by himself or herself and discovering for himself or herself. So the child is also listening to stories, perhaps, and listening to, looking at demonstrations and experiments at this age. Would you like to elaborate a little more on that, please?
Yes. So every lesson that we give in the environment is totally catering to the child's characteristics. So we said that they are they have a questioning mind and an imaginative mind, and we talk about how they want logical reasons for everything. So every lesson is devised in such a manner that it caters to all these needs in the child.
Hmm.
For instance, there are demonstrations in a lesson that we give. There are experiments to be carried out. They also have stories to go with, which appeals to the second plane child. And these
Right.
stories have, a link to the past. So these stories are very factual. They are not just fantasy stories or imaginative stories, but then stories which relate to the reality of our existence. I would say there are specimens that you can bring into the environment. If at all, if there is a need in the child to know about the invertebrates, for instance, then you can bring in specimens, and the children can observe and then deduce from characteristics from there. And it's not that, okay, I'm going to give you the characteristics, note it down. But they are going to observe and then they are going to write down the characteristics through their observation. By observing the live specimen. You can also help them make working models of things to have a hands-on experience of any concept, to understand what works, what doesn't. And this is one way of understanding physics or chemistry. There are charts of different, with different purposes. There are work charts. There are charts that are factual, and then there are anthropomorphic charts where there are human figures which help their imagination to sort of create images in their mind as to what must be happening. For instance, there is a chart on photosynthesis where you have a leaf, and then there are these human figures shown in the leaf which are doing the act of preparing the food for the plant. It is directly sort of related to how people work in a factory. There are some people doing a particular job, and then there are some people doing a particular job, and how all of them together come into come up with this product at the end, and what happens as a process. So this is something that appeals to the child's imagination and creates an image in the child's mind. These images are very important for them to move on to abstract. You need to, these are like hooks in your mind. These are like point of references in your mind that you were talking about earlier. These points of references are very important to move from one to the other, from one situation to the other, to apply this to something else. That's the kind of imagination we are talking about, isn't it? When I understand this, can I apply this to something else and see in that context what it means? So if I observe that there are dark clouds before rains, or there is some cool breeze, and can I relate it to the weather and say that, yeah, it might rain? How do we do that? How do we do that? It's because of this kind of reasoning. And this, the child is capable of doing at this age.
Right. So yeah, that brings me to my next question. This is again something many parents wonder. Parents who have their children in the elementary environment already, in a Montessori elementary environment. So this moving from, this child has done so much and has been given so much to learn by himself or herself. And then at some point, you have to move into a conventional school. So the methodology is different. The learning style is different. So we've had parents ask, how does this child then, will my child adjust? Moving away from this Montessori environment into a conventional school. So in your experience working with children over so many years, how would you give us kind of a response to this?
So I've seen, in the attempt to help children of various conventional schools and various strata, what I've understood too is that children are adaptive. By nature, they are so. They can adapt to any environment, any situation. Very naturally, they do that. Their nature itself is like that. Because if you see, children are born in different ages, in different cultures, in different families. And to adapt is to survive. In that sense, they are adaptive. Up to a certain age, maybe 12 or so, we can make the most of this age by providing them the opportunity to be in the Montessori, environment.
Right.
From then on, they are naturally, they can adapt to any environment because they've got the essence of, how something is to be learned. They've got the process. They've got the tools in their hands. They understand. They also are wholly responsible for their own learning. Having given them all these opportunities, now you should be fully convinced that my child can survive in any environment. Isn't it? Rather than having these questions in your mind as to will the child be able to adjust to another environment, you should be fully convinced that my child can now go to any environment and be able to proceed further. Right. And I've also seen children who come from conventional schools into Montessori environment. This has been something that I've been doing for the last 7-8 years. They adapt to the Montessori environment so beautifully. If this is possible, then that is also possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They very beautifully adjust to this environment. We also see them normalize in within a month. They learn to work on their own. They learn to make the conquest for themselves in the sense, working in a group comes very naturally, and logically reasoning out comes very naturally. But then in the beginning, you see them struggling with all these skills.
Right.
So when the children can adapt to a Montessori environment, they can also do otherwise.
Adapt to a convention. Wow, that's really. So I guess that's where the role of the adult also comes in.
Absolutely.
And the trust from the parents' side in the child.
Yes.
So if I were to keep the learning environments away, in the sense that let's forget the school, how as a parent or a caregiver can I help the elementary child at home, in the home environment?
So you mean to say how, what can the home environment provide for the child, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like we were discussing earlier, many a times, we shut them down saying, oh, don't ask me so many questions. Why are you going on nagging me? Or, oh, you've suddenly become so rude to me. You can't back answer, all that. So how do we now you've given us the characteristics of this child. So we are now trying to understand this child. But how do I also provide that kind of platform at home as a parent or a caregiver of an elementary child?
So the first thing that we need to do is give them listening ears. So as adults, we tend to react in the same manner as we did when the child started walking.
Right.
What did we do? We asked them not to move.
Yeah.
We moved everything away from them. Yeah. Whereas we need to give them that extra help when they took their first step into walking, isn't it?
Right.
Similarly, when the child is taking the first step into moving into a world of abstract, we need to handhold them. We need to give them that extra help. By giving them our listening ears, we also need to attend to their questions. They will be asking you a lot of questions. You need to give them logical reasons. Not giving them, either you shun them away or you give them very long explanations. These are two things that are very, disruptive in their
extreme.
Yeah, two extremes. So we need to give them logical reasoning, but also help them find their own answers, so that they will not come to you. You are not the point of departure for any knowledge, for all that the child is seeking. But it should be that you're helping the child find his own answers. In that way, you're making him independent. Isn't it? Do you want
Absolutely.
your child to always hold your hand and walk, or you want them
No.
to become independent? In that way, you also need to help the child in moving from, knowing answers from only you to knowing to
Finding
find
out.
answers for themselves. This is
Absolutely.
something that we can do. We also can help them become a contributing member of wherever they are, the home
Hmm.
environment or the school environment. When we do that, when we make that becomes a very important aspect of their being itself. Know that I
Hmm.
can contribute, and therefore include them in all your daily household practices. You
Hmm.
know, help them become responsible of things, of
Hmm.
cleaning, of making lists for something, or of taking account of something.
Hmm.
No, mm, all these would help them become more responsible and
Yeah.
also feel very confident from within that I also contribute to this
Absolutely.
space. Yeah. So helping them solve their own problems also
Hmm.
will help them. So at home, we need to do provide all these help at home, but
Hmm.
also giving them space to find out for themselves, you know,
Hmm.
uh, what they are wanting to find. If there are
Hmm.
big questions in their mind,
Hmm.
um, direct them to finding it out for themselves. Give them
Hmm.
resources like books,
Hmm.
you know,
Right.
uh, yeah, or articles from newspapers or other, sources. Guide them towards that, because
Hmm.
this is a particular age in the child's life where the child is
Hmm.
showing the maximum amount of interest in learning, and it's not
Hmm.
going to come back at any other particular age. Then don't you
Right.
want to make the most of it?
Absolutely. Harvest it as much as we can.
As
Yeah.
much as we can, because
Yeah.
after this plane comes the adolescence,
Hmm.
where they are now going to be preoccupied with many other problems in their lives.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so academics takes a backseat,
Right.
and therefore this is the most beautiful age when they are going to take the most interest in learning anything and everything possible, and
Yeah.
therefore we need to make the most of it. Yes.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, that kind of unravels the mysteries of this age, which is an enigma to most of us. So thank you so much, Kavita. We have 10 minutes, last 10 minutes.
Okay.
Maybe we can open it up for questions if the participants have
Sure.
any.
Sure.
So if you have any questions, maybe you can leave them in the question box or ask them in the comment sections. So we open up for any questions from you all. So I think, yeah, truly a fascinating time in the child's life, and we've all been through that. So I think, like,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
something, that's part of our lives which we still remember,
yeah,
and cherish. Uh,
absolutely, yeah,
we have happy memories of our friends from that age, and we can still
yes,
connect to them. So we also need to give that beautiful experience to our children,
yeah,
truly understanding them and aiding in their development. Yes.
yeah. I think it's commendable also on your part to kind of take this movement forward with your with Akam and training so many adults who are teachers or aspiring teachers. I think that's great work.
Thank you,
Really.
Ritu, for that. Yeah, because that sort of maybe that was a question, a question that was very important for me as to
Hmm.
what am I contributing,
Right.
and
Hmm.
at a point when I understood that children who go to a Montessori school also already have that all that they
Hmm.
needed,
Hmm.
and what about the other children then? That was a
Absolutely.
question, and
Yeah.
therefore I sort of
Yeah.
had this thought of starting up.
We have a question here
Yes.
from Reshma Ramanathan. Nowadays, children Google for answers even for simple questions where they need to think and explore. How to guide them to think?
Through our leading questions only. Even in our environments, when we give them a presentation on some concept, Reshma, what we do is we do not give them the answers, but then we ask them questions. And through our leading questions, we help them think,
Hmm.
So that's one way to go about. Finding answers through Google is something that we have shown them, maybe. And so how to now take it back, how to take something that we've already given them, take it back from them, it's going to be difficult. But we can make a change by acting right now. So from home, start from home. See to it that their questioning mind is developed, and for which you don't give them straightforward answers, but help them think, in the way that you pose questions at them. That's something that I would say will help them.
Yeah, something like even personally, when my son also tries to look for instant answers, I kind of try to say, why don't we look for it in this book? Or
Yeah.
if there's a spelling in Hindi where we are not sure, and it's very easy to find it online. You Google translate it, and it's easy to find. But then we say, okay, why don't you write it down, and then we'll spell it out and see if it helps or not.
Yeah.
So maybe things like that are some things that we can help the children also.
Yes, we need to be there, when they're seeking answers,
right,
to guide them in how they can find their answers. We need to be there for the child. Is also something very, very much important.
We have one more question from Jenny Anand. Do we need to educate the parent how to handle the elementary child, and how to do that? I think that's something that you do a lot, so maybe you should.
Absolutely. We need to educate the parents. One is because we need to understand the characteristics of the child, and also to help them understand what is the right help at the right time. And therefore, I definitely would recommend, going through a training with us for this age group. That would be an ideal thing to do for, parents to help the children. Yes, we definitely need to do that. The other thing is, many parents are naturally Montessorians.
Yeah.
In the way that they understand the need of the child, and in the way that they are reciprocative, in catering to the needs. All that is so it comes naturally to some, but then there is a need for them to undergo a training and to understand the child of this age. Yes, absolutely, there is.
Yeah. So there are trainings available in Chennai, or if you're not in Chennai as well, there are trainings available in most parts of India, online as well as physical, for the elementary group and the primary groups as well.
Yeah. So we are going through one training just now, but then very soon we'll be starting another for the elementary age group. There are training for the primary age groups as well, which you can take under IMTC, Indian Montessori Training Centres, which are spread all across the in Indian states, and therefore wherever you are, you should be able to access one of these courses.
Yeah.
Is there any other question, Niltu, or are we done?
I don't have anything right now here, but
Okay.
Oh, there is one. It has just come. Prabha, my kids are 8 years and are in conventional school. Can I shift them to Montessori now? I'm more interested in Montessori way of education. Which school can I try?
So, who is this from?
This is Prabha. I'm not sure if she's from Chennai, but
yeah. Prabha. So,
8 years old.
as I told you, 8 years old. She is already into the elementary age group, and yes, you can always shift them from a conventional school into a Montessori school, or you can try out some learning center where they usually learn the same concepts in a Montessori way. So that is also another possibility for you. And the children do adapt to any environment, is what is my observation, and therefore it is possible even now that you can do that. But then I don't think I can suggest any school in particular. But the ones that are already there in Chennai, you may Google and find out, and then choose the one that best suits you.
Yeah. So yeah, they are from Chennai. There are many,
Okay.
Prabha, there are many schools in Chennai which are now offering the elementary course as well,
Elementary.
the elementary program. So you could Google and find out, or talk to friends who are in the Montessori world and find out. Yeah.
Yeah. In the last 4 years, we've seen many Montessori schools that were catering to only the primary environments are now moved into providing elementary education as well.
Yeah.
And they're very authentic schools which are giving you the elementary experience in the Montessori way.
Yeah.
You can Google and find out, Prabha, and you'll wherever you are located, it depends on many factors, isn't it? So you can choose.
Yeah. In fact, one of my questions, Kavitha, was going to be, what happens to this elementary child when he or she goes beyond elementary? But maybe we can reserve that story for another day.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. That's a story for another day. We can definitely talk about what happens later, in the adolescent age group.
Yeah.
That's,
but for now, it is great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's even interesting to know how this child then shifts into another plane and totally is. It's mind blowing to know what the characteristics are there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is very amazing, actually, the way Dr. Montessori has foreseen. I mean, has seen it 100 years before, and it still holds good. No, and that's the beauty of the method itself. It has originated from knowing the child, and that the needs of the child is universal. No, that's where the methodology rests, and therefore it is relevant even today.
Correct.
The needs have not changed. Times have changed, but the needs have not changed, and therefore this is so beautiful to understand and can be taken forward for generations to come.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I hope many parents and educators also kind of take this movement forward and help every child out there. Yeah.
Yes, it is time for us to actually stop and think about where we are and what education has done to us, and what role what direction it is taking. We need to understand that at this juncture and take a call on that. What's more important is something that we need to think about. Not run after marks, performance, and all that, but then look at the child as a whole in their physical as well as spiritual development.
I guess, so on that note, I think we are just about in time.
Okay.
On that note of looking at the child, giving our listening ears to this child and understanding the child, respecting the child and all that. Thank you so much, Kavitha, for giving us this talk and unpacking this child for us. Thank you so much. And thank you all the participants as well. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Each and everybody who paid attention to what we spoke just now makes a lot of difference in your thinking as well as for us in taking this movement ahead. Thank you, Ritu and the team.
Thank you so much.